Well, what a pleasure today to visit with Patrick Simmons from the Doobie Brothers. They are going to be at Ozarks Amphitheater tomorrow. Pat, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, likewise. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate your taking the time.
Did you guys think, you guys got together in like 1970. Did you guys think 50 years later you'd still be doing this?
No. Yeah, no way.
Rock and roll can be such a fickle business, and you guys have blown it out of the water. You got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020. It's a legacy of music you guys have left so far.
We've been so fortunate. It's kind of one of those serendipitous things, if you will.
Yeah.
A big word. You never know. I think life is such a chancy thing. Things happen, and we've been really blessed. It was an accident, but I'm glad it happened.
Yeah. I have to ask you, because I've asked this of pretty much every musician I guess I've ever spoken to, but what was your reaction, you personally, Patrick, the first time you heard a Doobie Brothers song on the radio?
Oh, God, I was in ecstasy, thrilled to death. It was one of those things where it was hard to even believe. I think we had songs on kind of local radio around San Jose,
right.
And that was a thrill to hear them, but to actually hear a song made out of in those days it was AM radio, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
To hear something on AM radio on a station that basically only played hit records or records that were, in rotation, as they say, it was like, wow.
Did you have any advance notice that it was coming up, or did you suddenly just hear it?
No, not at all. Just heard it. Some of the guys, we were playing in San Francisco at a club, and I had stayed up in the city at a friend's house. So I was upstairs kind of just getting up after working late at night and getting up in the morning. And I heard this voice, Pat, you got to come down here right away. Listen to this. And that was, listen to the music was on the radio.
Oh, so great. Oh, what a song. Well, and again, I could sit here for a half hour, Pat, and listen to the music. What a Fool Believes, China Grove, Long Train Running, Taking to the Streets, one after another. I referenced Hall of Fame earlier, 2020. I have to ask, and I say this as a fan, what in the world took them so long to put you guys in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? That's what I want to know.
That's just one of those things. There's so many musicians out there, deserving musicians, and I think there's just only so many that they can kind of get nominated and on the roster at a time, and so there's a big backup, and I think we were just part of that. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll get in there one of these days, crowd, and finally, we got our opportunity, and really, we didn't really think we were going to get in at the time we were nominated, because usually it takes, a nomination over a period of time, but
right.
Somehow we, I guess they decided that we deserved it, or I don't know if we deserved it so much as a word as they just took a vote and we got in. But like I say, there's like lots of others waiting in line. So just one of those things. You just hope you get in there before you're dead.
Yeah, talk about a bucket list item. There you go. When you guys started in Northern California way back when, is it safe to say that you hung out with kind of a rough crowd, didn't you?
Oh, part of that is probably mythology. Half of it,
Well, tell us. I'd love to know. Tell me the real story.
When you're a musician, it's always a rough crowd because you're playing bars, and
mm-hmm.
look at the Blues Brothers. They had to play behind chicken wire, right?
Yeah, my favorite movie of all time, by the way.
It's kind of the lifestyle, I think, of definitely rock and blues and R&B musicians that you come in, it's late at night, you're playing for people who are, by the time 1 o'clock in the morning rolls around, half the audience has been drinking all night and partying and doing whatever else they're doing in the back room.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the end of the night, whether you had a rough crowd when you came in, there were a rougher crowd than when you got there.
By the time you,
and,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and the Bay Area, you know, was a lot of bikers and stuff in the Bay Area. So we always had a odd assortment of people. And in those days, it was not nearly as genteel community as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there was everything from cowboys and farm guys,
right.
The bikers and low riders, and you name it.
Quite a diverse crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes with the territory. So, in terms of a rough crowd, I think every musician has seen their rough crowd to a certain degree.
I'm visiting with Patrick Simmons of the Doobie Brothers. You can catch the Doobies at Ozarks Amphitheater tomorrow night. Pat, along with Tom Johnston, Michael McDonald, John McPhee, they're all going to be there. It's just going to be a fantastic show. I saw you guys a couple of years ago, by the way, and it was just a great concert. You guys, honestly, 50 years later, you haven't lost a beat, you haven't lost a note. You just sound just as good and fresh as way back when. You truly do. You guys are consummate entertainers. Actually, you guys were at the beginning, especially maybe the first, I don't know if you want to say 10 years of your career or whatever. You were kind of a straight-on rock and roll, maybe pop band, if I call it that. I even hate to call it that. But Michael McDonald came in and sort of, is that when you sort of started embracing the blue-eyed soul thing too?
Well, first let me say, very kind of you to say all those nice things, Kevin. I think probably when Mike was basically came along to kind of sub for Tommy, who was ill at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really know whether Mike was going to stick around. And luckily, Steely Dan, he had been touring with Donald and Walter,
right,
and Steely Dan,
right.
And they decided to stop touring at the time. And so Mike was available. And so we realized, we had a real talented guy. And so we wanted to keep him around. And then when Tom sort of was out for quite a few years after that, and Mike came in and stayed, and we certainly recognized Mike's talents as a singer, and didn't take us long to realize he had some great songs as well.
Yeah.
That the sound just kind of morphed into a little more R&B flavored, and keyboard dominated, of course, because Mike is a keyboard player. But I think we were still kind of in a sense, kind of rocking, like, Mike's first offering to the band was Taken to the Streets, which is kind of a rock and soul kind of a thing. Later on, when we did Minute by Minute, it kind of, again, became a little more mellower R&B, kind of more soulful,
right,
kind of a thing. But Mike loves playing rock and roll, so he embraces all the stuff we did in the past, and anything that I offered up that was more rockin', he jumped in and was able to facilitate that. And then Mike's written some more rockin' stuff himself. So when you have different elements and different people come along and join in the mix, whatever influences they bring, that's kind of, especially when they're as talented and are able to offer up the great songs that Mike has brought to the band. You try to rally around that and make the best out of it that you can. So that's kind of where we've always been. These days, we're actually working on some new material that Mike's been involved in writing for another upcoming album that we're working on right now.
Nice.
And that'll take some other forms as well, with the three of us offering songs for this record. But they're all over the map. Some more soulful pop R&B stuff, and a little more rock and blues, and a little bit almost country kind of stuff as well.
Oh, so. Yeah. Well, you guys are nothing if you're not versatile. Your musical styles, especially, when you factor in Michael and all these, you really run the gamut of musical styles, which is incredible.
Yeah, we've been allowed that freedom to kind of run that gamut, as it will.
Well, we're visiting with one of the original members of the Doobie Brothers, Pat Simmons. And Pat, I know we're running short on time here. I have to ask you about the story behind Blackwater, because that was not originally meant to be a hit or anything, but the way it happened, can you just fill us in on the way it all happened?
It was a B-side for a song that we had released from our longest titled album, What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits. That was the album title. Yeah. And so it was a B-side, and we put out the A-side, and it didn't really, it kind of floated for a while, and we got some play, but not what we were hoping for. And so we kind of thought, well, we'll move on, we'll do some other records, hopefully, and whatever, we're out here playing, and we have plenty of music, and we like what we did on this record, we'll play some of these songs. And then all of a sudden we were out on the road and got this call that, hey, it looks like you guys might have a hit from this album. And we go, well, really? What's that? And said, yeah, the B-side, Black Water, from this other release that you put out. It's getting played. So all of a sudden it was all over the radio, and it kind of blew our minds. We had no idea. And really, it wasn't on the radar as far as a song that we would have released as a single. It was more, Ted Templeman, the producer, put it on the B-side just kind of as a favor to me. He would go, "Oh, Pat, we'll put your song on here so you get some record royalties." If this other song sells.
For those of a certain age, when Pat says the B-side, it meant those 45 records. The A-side was your hit, and the B-side was maybe more of a throwaway on the other side of the record. So when you had a hit with a B-side, you were like, whoa.
Yeah, well, in those days, they still had jukeboxes, so your B-side was there on the jukebox for people to play as well. So if you didn't get played on the radio, maybe you'd get played in the jukebox. So.
Well, I'll tell you, Pat, it's been such a pleasure visiting with you. I could sit here for another half hour with you, but I know you are a busy man, so I will say thank you for joining me today. Doobie Brothers with Michael McDonald tomorrow night at Ozarks Amphitheater. Visit ozarksamp.com for all the ticket information. And Pat Simmons, I wish you and the guys in the band just nothing but success. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Kevin. You're so kind, and really appreciate it. Looking forward to getting out there and playing in Missouri. We're going to have a good time.